What's up, gamers? I'm your host Cobra, and today we've got a follow-up video, Zed Run recommendations for getting started. So, in the last video, we took a look at my monthly breeding plan, how it breaks down from a cost and profit perspective. That entails 8 total horses making up 2 different breeding sets, a set being 1 male and 3 female horses. Now, obviously, I think that's a great place to start. That's where I have started myself. However, I grew to that point. I didn't invest entirely straight into 8 horses specifically, and I wouldn't recommend that that's how you start either. That would be quite a big investment. So today we're going to take a look at the market together, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples for what I would recommend if you were going to start out with 1, 2, or 3 different horses at a handful of different budgets. Now, as always on this channel, we're not offering financial advice. Zed Run is a game, and you should be investing based on your willingness and desire to play that game. Now that said, we are talking about money, and getting into the game does have a financial cost to it. So these recommendations should help you be efficient. But like I said in my intro, you should always be prepared to lose the money that you're putting in, because there's no guarantees that today's values are going to be tomorrow's values. But let's dive right in. All right, so here we're looking at a tool called hawku.com/Zed. This is by far the best website that I have found for filtering the current marketplace. OpenSea does not have great filters, and with Zed Run, most of the time you're looking for something pretty specific, and you're not going to want to just be clicking through OpenSea to try and find the best deal. There are a handful of other options out there as well. I'll link those too. This is the site that I prefer, and we'll talk a little bit about why. So first up here, I have pulled up a search on Genesis Buterin females, so that you could take a look. This is probably the most common thing that a new Zed Run user will want to get into. The Genesis horse is the only type that is truly limited. It also gives you, or is going to give you in the future, some voting power via a token that they've talked about but have not produced yet. Either way, these are the crown jewels of the collection. Now, the Buterins are the entry level, so this will be your cheapest option to get in. It only goes up from here. If your budget is much larger than this, then absolutely consider starting with a higher end breed as well, if you would like to sell more expensive offspring and produce more likely good racers. But the Buterins are what I breed. That's what I recommend for anybody first starting out, because it's the closest thing approaching a reasonable cost. Now that said, the cost of a Genesis horse has been on the rise lately, and I don't expect that that's going to stop. So we will also be talking about a lower entry point as well, but this is about what you're looking at here if you want to get into a Genesis female. Now, I do recommend that you start with a female if you're interested in breeding. If you're going to race, probably start out with a colt. Not because they're better racers, but they are a bit cheaper today, and just the same chance of being a good racer. But also, when they are very good, you can now sell them in the stud farm at a nice profit. Typically, if you're more interested in the racing, I recommend going with a colt. That's mostly because of cost. If you're more interested in breeding, you want to start out with a female, and this is specifically because the female is the one that controls and receives the offspring at the end of the breeding session. So if you want to grow through breeding and you want to produce offspring to sell, you need females. And so because of that, female prices are higher today. But you're looking at about half of an ETH to get a unraced Genesis horse. Now you're going to notice most of these here listed are mares. That means that they have bred at least one time. One really, really important thing that you need to do when you're shopping for a female, especially if it is a mare, is to check on when it last bred. Now, one of the reasons why I like this particular website is that it gives you that information. We can click here and you can see that she bred last on July 10th. That means that she can breed again in 21 more days. Female horses can breed once a month. It's actually 28 days specifically, but once a month they can breed. So you want to check where they're at in that cycle. That will impact their price. You can save a little bit of money by getting one that's not ready to breed for a few weeks. If you buy one that is ready to breed, you know you're going to be able to produce an offspring cheaply that you'll be able to sell at a profit right away. So those prices tend to be a little bit higher. So just think about whether you're willing to be patient or if you really got to do it now. The other route you could take is to purchase a filly. A filly is just a female that has not bred yet at all. There's a similar concern though. If they're a filly, they haven't bred yet. However, a new offspring has to wait 30 days before it's able to breed for the first time. So most of the bred horses that are on the market are within that first 30-day period. That means you're going to be able to get a filly, which is great, but you're still going to be waiting a little bit. In fact, that's why my Electric Violet set hasn't done its breeding yet, because the legendary horses that I purchased still have about a week to go before they're ready. All right, here we're looking at the prices for a legendary female horse. As you can see, significantly cheaper. In my opinion, this is the sweet spot. A couple of things that you're looking for here when you're shopping for a legendary is the Z number here will always be a combination of its parents. So a Z20 legendary is going to have two Z10 Genesis parents. As you scroll around, you'll see there's some Z18s, Z17s, Z16s. You'll even find some that are Z12, Z13, and they might be a Buterin Nakamoto mix. It's important that you look at the parents when you're selecting a horse, even if the horse is totally untouched, because the parents tell us at least a little bit about the horse. So again, another nice feature on this tool here is that we can take a quick view at the family and the racing. Here's the parents. See, two Z10s. And right here, this is the average odds for the father. The mother is unraced, so that's a little bit more of an unknown. The father averages 14 odds. Odds I don't think are all that useful, but that's an okay number. He's got a 5% win rate. That's not great. He's been in 57 races. That's enough that we know for the most part if he's good or not. Terra Twilight's just an okay racer. We don't know anything about the mother, so there's still a lot of potential that this could be a great horse, but mostly it is unknown. What you really want to avoid as you're looking around here is anybody whose parents are really bad, right? So this is the same parents in this one. Let's take a look at another one, see if we can get a bad example. This one's fully unraced. That's actually what I would prefer, specifically because it's a full lottery ticket. Dirtweed might be a champion in the making. Widowed Window might be a fantastic breeder, and we just haven't discovered that yet. They also might be terrible, so there's risk here. But the reason why I like starting with the legendary horses is this price point. 0.08, much easier to swallow than 0.5 and up. So this is another great place to start. Now, if that's still a bit more than you're willing to spend to get started, we could drop down to the exclusive level as well. Exclusive is another generation removed from Genesis. So now this horse is 2 generations removed from the original DNA. That means there's more factors within the family tree that we can check out. You'll want to do a deeper dive if you're going to look at grandparents and brothers and sisters and all sorts of things like that. But an exclusive is an interesting spot because an exclusive female is able to breed with a Genesis horse and produce another exclusive. So usually you're stepping down a generation within that terminology. However, exclusives have the ability to breed additional exclusives. That only happens if you breed it with a Genesis horse, which means that your breeding cost will be a little bit higher. However, as you can see here, it costs less, not a lot less, but it costs less to get a female that produces essentially the same level of offspring as the horse above it. Now, it's not exactly the same, because again, you remember the parents' Z numbers added up is going to be the Z number of the offspring. So if you're looking at something in the Z20s, this one here is a Z29, and then you're breeding that with a Genesis horse, it's probably going to be on the lower end of Buterin, a Z8 to Z10, which means that your offspring is now going to be something like a Z38, right in that range, depending on which one you chose. That is similar but different than the Z28s or Z29 exclusives that my legendary fillies are putting out. However, you can see there's not a very big gap between exclusive and legendary horses today, and you can also see that there's not a huge gap in the offspring prices. So if things were to stay totally flat today, to today's market, it would be smarter to go with exclusives, and I should probably think about downgrading the legendaries that I have in my stable. I'm not sure or convinced that that's going to hold over time, but today that's the case. I think what this really suggests, rather, is that it makes a whole lot of sense to keep at least some of the females and likely 1 or 2 more males as well from your offspring to create some additional breeding pairs at the exclusive level and grow your output per month. And then really quickly, let's take a look at the colt prices. If you're going to be breeding, eventually you're going to want to get your own colt as well. This is because it brings down the breeding cost. It also lets you make a full plan and make it predictable. If you're relying on finding a certain type of stud in the stud farm, unless you've prearranged some partnerships, you're going to be searching. Now, today I don't find that that's a huge hassle. If you really need to, you can likely find what you're looking for. But long term, I think you want to control your own horses on both sides of the DNA, which means you're going to want to get a stud of your own at some point. Now, I talked about a couple of different levels that you can get in. We also talked about starting out with females and why I think that's the way to go. And so if you want to get 1 horse, get a female. That lets you start breeding. If you want to get 2 horses, I would actually say get 2 females. Again, that gives you the control over breeding. If you're willing to start with 3, which is a great place to start, assuming that your budget fits it, then that's when I would think about adding a male. And then over time you can look to get a 3rd female and complete that breeding set. Again, breeding set is the efficient way to go because 4 horses are able to produce 3 offspring per month, and that can only happen if you have 3 females and 1 male. If you're willing to go with a higher budget, you want to get as many Genesis horses as you can. Yes, the ROI is longer if you're investing more up front in more expensive horses. However, I think those are the ones that will give you the most consistent results over time. I also think that's the asset that's most likely to increase in value over time. If you're already considering at the Genesis level, then go ahead and consider Finneys, Seesbos, Nakamoto's even. There's an even more limited supply of those Genesis horses, and great opportunity there as well. However, you're going to find that that is over $1,000. What you're looking at here, today's ETH price is about $3,200. So that's like $1,600 to get a Genesis horse. If we switch back down to Legendary, look at how massive that price falls. You can get a Legendary horse for 1/10 the price, literally. Obviously, the payback there is much quicker. So if you started out your stable with Legendary and exclusive horses, you could get an entire breeding set for less than the cost of one Genesis horse, and start producing offspring as quick as this month if they're all ready to go. More likely you'll be getting ones that have to wait 2 to 4 weeks, and you'll start in about a month. But because these costs are low, the offspring you're going to be producing are similar. It really is only going to take you 2 cycles, and you should be in the black. If you sell all 6 horses that are produced by the 4 that you purchase, that can be done. That can be paid back in about 2 months at today's current prices. No guarantee those prices hold. However, I'm of the opinion that they're on the low side right now for all of the non-Genesis horses, and certainly have potential to go up. All right, so today we took a look at the Zed Run market, and we talked about some ways that I would recommend getting started if you're interested in starting your stable today. Now, you can get started in Zed Run and create a breeding plan with just one horse as long as you start with a female. Technically, you could start out with a male, put it in the stud farm, and hope to get some stud fees out of them, and then use the stud fees to purchase your second horse. I find that that is a more difficult route to go unless you have either a very rare color, one of the higher end horses. A Nakamoto is going to sell, of course. The Buterins, there's a lot of competition. Or most importantly, if you have a really strong racer, people are going to want to breed with that. However, if you're purchasing unraced, like I typically recommend for a starter horse, it's going to be difficult to get somebody to breed with that colt unless you know them. You can advertise on Discord and on Twitter, and maybe you'll get some hits, but there's a lot of competition. Everybody puts their horse in the stud farm because why not? So you want to start out with that female so that you can control the offspring, and then grow from there. Do keep in mind that if you purchase a female, you do have to pay the breeding cost. Now today it is very, very, very easy to find a stud at the minimum fee, and you can usually find one that is also unraced. Pro tip, if you care about the color and you start out with just one female, the father actually has more influence over the outcome of the offspring's color. So pick a father and a color that you really like, and it's a little bit complicated in terms of the actual odds of getting what you want, but if it's a common color and the father has that exact color, your odds are pretty good of getting that color as an offspring. But keep in mind, you are going to pay that cost. The minimum breed fee is 0.036 Ethereum. That's going to need to be wrapped Ethereum on the Polygon or Matic network. That's how all of the Zed purchases and transactions are. That makes it gasless, which is nice, and will save you some money when you're both buying and selling. But does add a little bit of extra cost up front because you got to send that Ethereum over. Just keep in mind in your starter budget that there is some fees to pay for a little bit later. they're on the smaller side, but that is a factor to consider. And then you can grow from there. If you're able to start with more than one horse, you can grow a little bit faster. Again, I suggest starting with 2 females first. That gives you 2 offspring. You're paying a little bit higher cost to go outside of your stable to get those studs, but you're going to be able to produce an additional offspring. When you get to 3 or maybe 4 is when I would want to consider getting a colt of my own. In my specific case, that's exactly how it went. I got 2 females and then a male and grew from there. Hope this was helpful. If it was, hit that like and subscribe button. There's going to be a whole lot more videos just like this. In the next round, I had planned on talking to you about Cryptoblades, but quite honestly, Cryptoblades is on pause for me right now, as they're going to fix a few things. So instead, I think we might start part 1 of our How to Get Introduced to Axie for Under 1 Ethereum series.